Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're tackling the absolute best way to map property down in Costa Rica. Look, whether you're just buying a small jungle lot for a getaway or you're planning a massive real estate development, how you actually gather your topographic data is undergoing a massive game-changing shift right now. We're looking at this really fascinating collision between traditional, boots-on-the-ground fieldwork and cutting-edge aerial tech.
So if you need a topographic survey done today, you're faced with a pretty major choice right out of the gate. Do you hire a traditional ground crew, or do you commission a drone? And honestly, this isn't just some dry, technical detail to pass off to your engineer. No, this is a decision that is going to heavily impact your wallet, your project timeline, and actually the physical safety of the crew involved.
All right, round one, welcome to the jungle.
To really understand why this choice matters, we first have to picture the environment we're dealing with. Traditional ground surveying out there, it is definitely not a walk in the park. You're talking about a crew of 2 to 5 people who have to physically hike to every single measurement point. That means literally hacking their way through dense, ridiculously steep vegetation with machetes. And the risks are very real. We're talking highly venomous fertile ant snakes, aggressive wasps, extreme heat exhaustion, and unstable slopes. It's beautiful land for sure, but man, it is deeply unforgiving.
Moving on to round 2, the head-to-head matchup.
Let's see how these two actually stack up against each other. With the traditional method, you've got a licensed topographer and their crew out there on foot with total stations and GPS rovers. They have to literally stop, aim, record, and then move on, point by agonizing point. In a really dense forest, they might only cover, say, half a hectare a day. On the flip side, you have a drone. Guided by an RTK GPS base station for crazy precise centimeter-level accuracy, it flies this automated, pre-programmed grid. It can map up to 50 hectares in a single day. 50! And that's whether it's flying over flat grass or a near-vertical wall of jungle.
Now, you might be thinking, sure, drones are fast, but there's no way they can see the ground through all those thick trees, right? Well, actually, scratch that, because this is where LiDAR comes in, and it's a total myth buster. LiDAR is a sensor that fires 240,000 laser pulses every single second. Those pulses are so densely packed that they slip right through the tiny little gaps in the jungle canopy to map the true bare earth ground underneath. It completely penetrates the jungle, and nobody has to swing a single machete.
And because LiDAR drones just skip the trail cutting entirely, the speed difference is absolutely staggering. In mountainous or heavily forested land, a drone can literally be up to 10 times faster than a human crew. 10 times.
To put that into perspective, think about the timeline for a 25-hectare forest plot. What would normally take up to 3 weeks of grueling, sweaty fieldwork for a ground crew can literally be flown by a drone in one single day. You give it a few extra days for the data processing, and you've got your results before the ground crew has even finished clearing their very first trail. It's wild.
Okay, round 3, myth-busting, accuracy, and cost.
I hear you though. What about accuracy? Don't you get what you pay for? Well, a traditional ground crew does get incredibly precise accuracy. We're talking within 1 to 3 centimeters at each specific point they measure. But here's the catch. They only measure a few hundred points across an entire property. Between those specific points, the map is kind of just an educated guess. The drone, on the other hand, might have a slightly wider accuracy tolerance of, say, 2 to 5 centimeters, but it captures millions of points. Millions. It catches every little hidden gully and subtle slope break that a ground crew just walks right past.
And then, of course, we get to the budget. For that same 25-hectare plot we just talked about, the financial data is pretty shocking. A ground crew's cost scales up linearly with their labor hours. More land means more days of hacking trails, which can easily push the bill up to around $8,000. But the drone survey's cost scales with flight time. That brings the total in dramatically lower, right around $2,600.
As a general rule of thumb, for properties anywhere between 5 and 100 hectares, drone surveys are routinely 40 to 70% cheaper. That is a massive chunk of your project budget that you're saving right out of the gate.
And real-world data backs this up perfectly. Take this actual project, a 40-hectare forested finca down in Perez Zeledon. The lowest quote they got from a ground firm was $7,200, and it was going to take 6 long weeks. The client decided to go with a drone instead. The actual final cost? $3,800, and it was delivered in just 5 business days. So they saved over $3,000, skipped a whole month of waiting, and mapped ground the human crews literally couldn't even reach.
So, flawless victory for the drones, right? Well, let's look at round 4, the legal catch.
Because there is a catch. Drones are absolutely incredible data gathering tools. But they lack one crucial, irreplaceable thing: the legal authority to sign official government documents. Costa Rican law strictly mandates that a licensed human topographer must stamp any official boundary map, what they call a plano catastrado, if it's destined for the National Registry.
Because of this legal reality, ground crews are still absolutely necessary in a few specific scenarios. If you are submitting official boundary pins, subdividing a property, or trying to resolve a formal boundary dispute, you legally need a human topographer, period. Plus, physically speaking, drones just can't map inside buildings, or beneath bridges, or under dense, overhanging rocks. Sometimes, sending a guy out there with a GPS rover is simply the right tool for the job.
Which brings us to our final section, round 5, the smart hybrid approach. So how do you get the speed and the massive cost savings of a drone without running face first into those legal roadblocks? The answer is what industry experts are calling the smart hybrid workflow. For large projects, you don't actually choose one or the other, you combine them. Step 1, you run a drone survey to capture the topography and millions of data points super fast from the air. Then, step 2, you send your licensed topographer out into the field to verify and stamp only the specific boundary pins required by law. Basically, you let the drone safely do 90% of the heavy lifting, and you use the human surveyor for the 10% that requires that legal signature. It's honestly the ultimate win-win.
As technology totally reshapes how we understand the land beneath our feet, the old ways of doing things are rapidly becoming a thing of the past. By utilizing these modern hybrid workflows, you're looking at zero risk of snake bites, thousands of dollars saved, and millions of highly accurate data points instead of just a few hundred. So as you start looking toward your next development or purchase in Costa Rica, you really have to ask yourself, is your next mapping project going to rely on boots or bots?